Have you ever tried to run a complex build process only to be met with frustrating errors? If that's you, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into troubleshooting Bazel Remote Executor tests running on separate machines. I totally understand how challenging it can be when things don't work as expected, especially when you're following guides and still hitting roadblocks. You're not alone in this. Many developers face similar issues. Here's the specific situation we're looking at. A user attempted to run Bazel tests using a remote worker inside a Docker container, but encountered some unexpected errors. They want to know if they're doing something wrong or if there's a different approach they should take. So, what could be causing these errors? Running Bazel with a remote executor can be tricky, especially when dealing with Docker containers and different operating systems. Let's break down the potential issues. And stick around. I have some valuable tips at the end that will help you avoid these pitfalls in the future. To begin troubleshooting the user's issue, let's first ensure that the remote worker is correctly set up in the Docker container. The user should verify that the Docker file is properly configured to build the remote worker. Next, the user should check the Docker container's logs for any errors during the build process. This can help identify if there were issues compiling the remote worker. After confirming the build process, the user should ensure that the Bazel command is correctly configured to communicate with the remote worker. This includes checking the remote executor and cache settings. Finally, if the user continues to encounter errors, they should consider running the remote worker on a dedicated virtual machine instead of Docker. This can help isolate any issues related to the Docker environment. Fun fact, did you know that Bazel was originally developed by Google to handle their massive codebase? It's designed for speed and efficiency, but it can be a bit finicky at times. Now, let's look at the answers provided by other users. This user points out that running the Bazel remote worker on a different architecture or operating system than Bazel itself may not work due to some temporary measures in Bazel that inspect the local machine. However, it might work for platform-independent code, like Java or Scala. If your build is test-heavy, consider using the command test_strategy=remote to run tests remotely. For a full remote build, you need to specify the machine's OS and architecture using Mesh host CPU and possibly cross-tool top. Lastly, some platform combinations work better than others. For instance, combining macOS and Linux is more likely to succeed than using Windows with other platforms. Here's a pro tip. Always test your Docker setup locally before deploying it to a remote machine. This can save you a lot of headaches down the line. And there you have it. With these troubleshooting steps, you should be able to get your Bazel Remote Executor running smoothly. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more tips and tricks.